Percentage of women who would be less likely to date someone with the following attributes. The number in pink, they went to college. In gray, it's just high school or less. Does this mean you had to graduate college? I went to college, but yeah, I dropped out. First category, someone who smokes cigarettes. So if you just have your high school degree or lower, you're only 68% less likely to go on a date if they smoked. Versus college, 91% less likely to go on a date is unemployed. Why do I feel like this is about to explain some things for me? Am I technically unemployed? I don't know by legal definition. I'm self-employed. If you just have your high school degree, you're 74% less likely to go on a date with a man who is unemployed. Versus if you went to college, you're 89% less likely is a Trump supporter. This is where things get drastically different. 42% for high school ladies. High school ladies, what the hell? It's gotta be a more proper name. But 74% for women that went to college. 74% less likely. Does not trust vaccines. 34% less likely for the high school, I almost said high school ladies again. High school graduates versus 72% for the women that went to college. Lives with their parents. Ooh, look how much higher. See, with the high school graduates, 52% like, so no one likes this. Or at least this is more of a problem than the vaccine or Trump thing. I mean, there's whole other factors to that. Weirdly, this is actually where the college, they kind of meet more. The women that went to college, it's actually pretty close relative to some of these other categories. I wonder if this comes from like women that went to college are more likely to, maybe after college, to go and live with their parents again, versus maybe the women that just got their high school degrees, got a job, and maybe they live by themselves. I don't know. I'm just trying to make sense of this. Much shorter than you. Oh no. Oh no. 48% high school versus 64. Oh, look at that. I find some of the common ground kind of a little bit more interesting between these two groups. Like they're almost more like thinking on the same page, kind of. Still pretty big difference though. Is very religious. Only 34% for the high school graduates. 54 for college. Did not go to college. Okay, well obviously people that graduated high school and only high school, they don't care about that. 12 versus look at this gap, 54. Wow. I mean, I get that kind of. 54 is not as high as a lot of these other categories though. Has children, 35% to 52%. Is a Republican, 26% to 52%. And then the final category, the only topic that actually has this swapped is a feminist. They're only 25% less likely to go on a date with you, whereas the high school graduates, they're 47% less likely if you, I guess, are a self-described feminist. Fascinating. So being taller than them is more important than having a college education. People say they don't want X, Y, and Z, but then you get to know someone, you like them, and sometimes you make exceptions for X, Y, and Z, so this is all pointless. The anatomy of a Supermax prison. And it looks like this is from the United States, not that massive one they have in El Salvador. I mean, that one is just at like a completely whole different level. So a Supermax prison is a freestanding facility or distinct unit within a facility which implements the highest security standards. This is just one of the federal Supermax prisons located in Florence, Colorado. No one has ever escaped. 37 acres, 1,400 remote-controlled steel doors. The complex is designed so the prisoner has no knowledge of where he is in the facility. Oh, that's smart. Guards control electricity in cells and monitor prisons 24 hours per day. I mean, you should probably monitor prisoners 24 hours a day, right? Maybe they don't all do that, though. At least 25,000 prisoners are kept in Supermax solitary confinement throughout the United States. Whoa! That's like the worst, from what I hear. I've never been to prison. Not yet. Some of the inmates in the federal Supermax prison, Ted Kaczynski, returned to Monkey Guy, Shoe Dude, Kyle Leon, Oklahoma City guy. That guy's still alive? First attack on the World Trade Center guy. The prison complex and prisoners are monitored by multitudes of motion detectors and cameras. The prison is surrounded by 12-foot high razor wire fences. That seems like the easiest thing to get through, to be honest. They're fences or are they walls? This looks like it's a wall, but I'm also looking at this in like 240p quality. Laser beams, pressure pads, and attack dogs guard the prison. Prisoners must wear handcuffs, belly chains, and belly chains? This kind of sounds funny. I'm imagining like a belly piercing. Leg shackles when they're moved. Oh, when they're moved. All the inmates have been sentenced to at least 25 years, 490 inmate capacity, 347 staff people. Wow, so you almost have as many staff as prisoners. Communication with guards, prisoners, and the outside world is forbidden or severely censored. Inside one of the cells. Oh, do they each get their own room though? 23 hours per day of solitary confinement. Oh, this wouldn't be fun. With solitary confinement, prisoners are allowed 1 hour of solitary exercise in a cell called the empty swimming pool, which is designed to disorientate prisoners. I have to say, I have a weird fascination with prison. Not that I want to go, but strategies I would have to try to use to survive. alive. 2003 psychological study of inmates in this Pelican-based Supermax 2. 83% experienced social withdrawal, 88% feeling of irrational anger and ruminations. Well, they're prisoners. I mean, irrational anger, doesn't that kind of, I don't know. With these types of prisoners, at least, were on the verge of nervous breakdowns, had symptoms of anxiety, had perpetual disorders, and experienced hallucinations. So solitary confinement is going to cost a lot more, obviously, because, you know, you have to be in a room by yourself, and it depends on where. And what we're talking about is how much money it's going to cost. Solitary confinement costs nearly $130 million per year. Yeah, that would be the absolute worst. That will definitely get to you. It would get to me. Literally what I was thinking about this whole time. Time to try to build one of my own of these. Gotta see if I can match that level, basically. The oldest G20 nations leaders. And no, surprisingly, Joe Biden is not number one. He took silver. He's being beat out by King Salman of Saudi Arabia, who's 88 years old. Wow. Joe's got a long way to go to catch up to that. Then there's Brazil's Lula, that's at 78 years old. He's taking home the bronze medal. We have Modi out of India, 73, which is kind of funny. 73 in the context of US politics right now kind of sounds young for our leader. We just have a lot of old leaders. Vladimir Putin is 71. I forgot he was 71, to be honest. This man out of South Africa, also 71 in 6th place. Xi Jinping, who's 71. I mean, that's who China's going all in on. But how long will they be able to go all in on this guy? Because 71 years old, he's getting up there. Maybe another 10 years. Maybe. I guess it depends if he lives as long as the Saudi Arabian king. I mean, he's definitely going to be leading China for a while, but who knows for how much longer. AMLO out of Mexico, he's 70 years old, but they did just elect a new president, so he won't be on this list anymore. Erdogan is 70 out of Turkey, and finally Kishida, 66 from Japan. 60s, you know, after looking at this list, 60s doesn't sound too bad. Man, a lot of these famous leaders really getting up there. Seems like a lot of the world is just, they've got a lot of old leaders, clearly. Then there's the ripe old Kim Jong-un, only 40. Wow! That guy, he's just gonna be so, because, you know, a lot of these, like, the really famous leaders, they're old because they've been around for so long, and that's why they're so famous. Short of North Korea collapsing, which, I mean, anything is possible, we're gonna be seeing this guy for a really long time, unless, again, or something happens to him. I mean, his dad died at 70, so at least maybe 30 more years, maybe more. I know this might be misleading, but no, just because North Korea has the name Democratic People's Republic of North Korea doesn't actually mean they're going to elect someone else than Kim Jong-un. He's going to continue to be that supreme leader up here for a minute. Just want to add the other list of G20 leaders that are younger here. Some are pretty, I mean, Macron, 46. American tipping habits. Obviously, this has kind of gotten out of control as of recently. How many Americans always tip at certain businesses versus often tip? Starting off with what we started with, eating at a sit-down restaurant. 81% always tip versus 11 who often. That only adds up to 92% of people. That means that 8% of people never tip. That's still pretty high. I was a waiter. Yeah, that might be about right. I definitely got stiffed a couple times there. Getting a haircut is the second most popular business to tip for Americans. 65% of people always do it. 13% often. I'm an always person. I always tip on haircuts. Having food delivered, 59% of people always do it versus 17% often. They're actually just behind. This is kind of a newer business, obviously, that hasn't been around forever, but that got really up there in terms of the tipping culture. Buying a drink at a bar, 53% always do it versus 18% that often. I mean, if you want to continue to get drinks at the bar, you better tip them. Using a taxi or rideshare service, 43% always do it, 18% often. Here's where it gets crazy though. Buying a beverage at a coffee shop, 12% always do it, 12% often do it. So there's a lot of people that do not. I am an oftener. I do tip at this, even though I have told people to not do this. I go to the same coffee shops all the time. I would like to make friends with those employees. I just feel kind of awkward if I don't. Eating at a fast food casual restaurant. What does that even mean? 7% and 5%. Yeah, I don't. What does that even mean? I don't do that though. Fast food casual restaurant. Like, is McDonald's asking for tips now? I think maybe one of the fast food chains. As a person from a country without tipping, tips are one of the most confusing things. Well, yeah, there you go. The ancestry of different United States presidents, because obviously a lot of them can be linked back to European countries. Completely unsurprisingly, most US presidents can be linked back to England. There's 39 that have ancestry from England. Some notable ones: Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and Jimmy Carter. Now, Jimmy Carter is a little bit more surprising just because, you know, like Thomas Jefferson was literally a British person and then he became an American because of the American Revolution, you know. 22 presidents have ancestry from Scotland. Again, everything here probably shouldn't be that shocking. James Monroe, Woodrow Wilson, even Ronald Reagan. Wales, 19, George Washington, Millard Fillmore, and William Howard Taft, all off the same island. Interesting that 13 came from Ireland, and then are you saying a different 13 came from Northern Ireland? I don't think so. There's no way, right? No, this says Andrew Jackson, William McKinley, and George H.W. Bush. And then here's just regular Ireland, not Northern Ireland. There's Joe Biden, John F. Kennedy, also James Buchanan. That's really interesting to me. Just because Ireland didn't get their independence while the British kept the northern part till 19 1921. Obviously, it was all just under the UK before that. We've had 13 US presidents linked to France. Ulysses S. Grant, Calvin Coolidge, and even Frank D. Roosevelt. I don't know why this is shocking to me. It probably shouldn't be at all. There's plenty of Americans that have French ancestry. Still, I don't know. 12 that are German. Donald Trump. Wasn't Donald Trump's dad like basically a German immigrant? Oh no, he was born in the Bronx to German immigrants. Okay. Kind of interesting considering that Germany didn't become a nation until 1871. Ulysses was born before that, but of course you still can be German. Just a little bit more interesting. I don't know. We've had 11 Dutch presidents. Martin Van Buren, Theodore Roosevelt was Dutch, and then Warren G. Harding. 5 Swiss, Herbert Hoover, Harry Truman, and Barack Obama. Obama also has the only country outside of Europe, and that is Kenya. 4 Danish presidents, James Madison, Zachary Taylor, and Lyndon B. Johnson. That's also the country I can trace my ancestry back to, at least part of it. George W. Bush from Czechia. Whoa. Oh man, the meme community could do some stuff with this. I don't even want to know what they're going to do with that, actually. We might have opened a can of worms that we won't be able to put away. FDR, also from Estonia. Of course, you know, like I was talking about, you have a mom and a dad, so each one of those lineages can go in different directions, which is why FDR can be French and Estonian. But Estonian is pretty interesting. That is a definitely more unique country here on this map. Gerald Ford from Poland. Ford doesn't seem like a Polish name, but again, maybe it's from his mom's side. I'm assuming it's from his mom's side. Herbert Hoover has Spanish ancestry? That does not, I don't know. That's crazy. I'm not saying I don't believe you. It's just, wow, I didn't expect that. Finally, Lyndon B. Johnson with Swedish. Oh, wow. There's a whole lot of memes about Lyndon B. Johnson. He had a very interesting way of being a president, showing Jumbo around and stuff. Okay, Sweden. It was actually really interesting. I wish that we could like fast forward 50 years and get even more data. Who knows where future US presidents will continue to come from ancestry-wise. Yeah, I was waiting for the Polish joke to come eventually. O'Leary, O'Reilly, O'Hare. There's no one as Irish as Barack Obama. Obama. I was literally just cracking up about this yesterday. I think it's like the weird silence and echo and whatever the microphone audio did in that moment. The changing structure of U.S. households. Share of households by household type between 1960 and 2023. Immediately what was really interesting to me is that the married with no kids category hasn't really changed. It's actually even gone down. What's that called again? DINKS. Yeah, DINKS. That's what the acronym is now. But it's crazy to see that that was honestly even more popular in 1960. It's still, you know, obviously up there, but it hasn't changed. The thing that's changed is just married parents. There's less of those, 17% now versus 42% back in the year 1960. Wow. So that's more than half. And that change didn't happen like recently at all. It looked like it really started, you know, taking place like in the 1980s, and then it's just kind of slowly dwindled from there. So these are people that are married and they have kids. And that's been taken up mostly by living alone. Now, 29% of American households are one person, whereas back in the 1960s, that was only 13%. Wow. That's where the biggest change in households in general have come from. It's just a random thought, but I'm sure that's not helping with the housing crisis and affordability since everyone is just living alone now. Single parents is not necessarily all that much up. It's almost doubled since 1960, but I didn't think it would only be at 7.4%. I thought it'd be slightly higher than that. And what the hell is other? What does that mean? Other. How can you live? What is other? If you're not living alone, if you're not married, if you're not single, like, oh, these got to be roommate people, right? I think they have roommates. Wow, married, no kids, not increasing is pretty shocking to me. I thought there would be a big increase. Same. Look at the people with kids versus without. Wow. In 1960, it was almost at 50%. Now it's almost at just 25%. That's pretty crazy. Tipping point when populations peak. This is the projected year when each selected country's population is going to, well, peak and start declining. Look at it like a hill. Most countries are starting around here. There are a couple countries like Japan and Italy that are already beginning their decline. And actually, that's the first two countries we're going to talk about. Apparently, Japan peaked already like just after, maybe this is like 2011. That was when they hit their population peak, and they are very unlikely to ever get that number again. They were at about 128 million in 2010. Now only 125 million. They have only lost 3 million, but it's a slippery slope, obviously. Then, like I said, the other big one in Europe is Italy. Then we have 3 countries that are currently peaking: Spain, Germany, and now China. And actually, this looks like they might have already peaked possibly last year. I did miss one up here, though. Russia might have peaked in 2021. I wonder what happened in 2021 to have Russia's population peak. Could it be this the following year after? Who knows? Thailand is expected to be at their peak right now currently. Thailand sitting with 71 million people. As far as this chart goes, it looks like no super major, I'm sure there's like maybe minor countries that are in here, but none of the major countries until after 2040. Then we have France possibly peaking then, Brazil soon after that, then a plethora just before 2060. We've got Mexico, we've got Iran, we've got Vietnam and Turkey. I know it seems hard to imagine they'd be able to accurately predict this so far into the future, but with birth rate data, like the numbers are right there. Like the people being born now are literally showing you the future, what it's going to be like in 20, 30, 40 years. In 2060, there's a place like Bangladesh that's supposed to peak. That's crazy because Bangladesh has a lot of people. Also Indonesia, Argentina, and India even. Now, there's only a couple countries in this list that are expected to peak after the year 2100. That's Ethiopia, Egypt, Australia, Pakistan, the Congo, Nigeria, Canada, the USA, and that's it. Well, maybe more, but like I said, we're only like covering, I don't know, it looks like 20 nations maybe. Very interesting to see this big gap. So these nations are really ahead of the curve. That is why so much of the world is paying attention to places like Japan and Italy, because they're predicting what it's going to be like for all of us. Apparently for some countries, they might have already peaked. Like, I mean, way before the turn of the millennium. The UN always underestimates Spanish immigration. And that is obviously a very big factor, including for Germany as well. Yeah, the US is being saved by basically that. Big ol' thanks to my patrons. Drew's Argentinian grandpa. Lucas, the Canadian Goose from Avoca.
Drew har förvisats från Sverige för brottet att vara dans.
Amateur Archaeology. Sarsath. Carmel S. Kade Beautiful-MEGAN-Underwood. Fredrik Tibblin. Dad back with the milk. Look out, InquisitorXarius. Sebby, if you hear this, and Tambre.